In this insightful video, we're going to explore an important question many of us face in our later years. Could living near your grown children be quietly affecting your happiness and well-being in ways you might not expect? And more importantly, how could rethinking this arrangement bring new vitality and joy to your life? The answer may surprise you, but it's backed by a growing understanding of the challenges and opportunities of aging. Before we dive into the details, I want to share a story that beautifully illustrates this point. It's a story many of you will relate to, and it holds a profound lesson that can reshape how you think about this stage of life. So, take a moment, settle in, and let's explore this journey together. The insights we'll share today might just inspire you to make a change that could significantly enhance your quality of life. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any valuable content that helps you live healthier, happier, and more fulfilled during this stage of life. Journey to rediscovering herself. Eleanor's story. At 72-year-old Eleanor, a kind and patient widow, decided to leave her cozy apartment and move in with her daughter Sarah's family. After the passing of her beloved husband, she hoped that living close to her daughter and grandchildren would fill the void in her heart. Maybe this is my second chance to create new memories and rediscover the joys of family, she thought, carrying her luggage and a heart full of hope into this new chapter of her life. At first, everything felt like a dream. Every morning, Eleanor woke up to the sound of her grandchildren's laughter echoing through the house. She loved the busyness of making breakfast and the sparkle in their eyes as they shared their little stories. In the afternoons, she helped them with homework, reliving her days as a devoted teacher. One day, little Lily whispered, "Grandma, you make everything feel magical." Eleanor's heart swelled with joy. Sarah's home was a true haven, a place where everyone gathered together. This deep connection made Eleanor feel whole. A study from Harvard once highlighted that intergenerational bonds can be a powerful antidote for the soul, and Eleanor wholeheartedly believed it. But even the brightest moments can cast shadows. One late afternoon, while preparing dinner in the sunlit kitchen, Eleanor overheard Sarah talking on the phone. "Mom holds everything together around here. I can't imagine how we'd manage without her." It was a heartfelt compliment, but it stirred a complicated emotion in Eleanor, a mix of pride and a faint sense of loss. As the days went by, Eleanor realized that every moment of her life now revolved around Sarah's household. Breakfast, homework, countless small chores. Slowly but surely, she began to lose the little moments she once cherished for herself. Mornings spent sipping tea by the window, or evenings lost in a good book under the glow of a lamp. Sometimes Eleanor thought about her old apartment, where she had lived freely and on her own terms, savoring every peaceful, uninterrupted moment. But almost instantly, guilt would creep in. "I'm surrounded by everything I ever dreamed of. Why does it feel like something is still missing? What's wrong with me for feeling this way?" She berated herself. One night, after tucking the kids into bed, Eleanor stepped out onto the back porch. The sky shimmered with countless stars, like a silent symphony of light, but her heart felt heavy with questions. Have I given too much of myself away? In caring for everyone else, have I forgotten to care for me? She wondered, the uncertainty pulling her in opposite directions. Eleanor realized she needed to find harmony, a way to pour love into her family without emptying her own cup. She knew in her heart that only by reclaiming her own joy could she truly share it with those she cherished most. Eleanor seeks balance between family devotion and self-discovery. She believed she had found a new purpose in life when she decided to move in with her daughter's family. Eleanor felt immense joy in caring for her grandchildren, and the idea of helping Emily navigate her hectic life gave her a sense of belonging and significance. Who wouldn't want to spend their golden years surrounded by the laughter of children and the embrace of family? She often thought. The early days were filled with warmth and promise. Every morning, Eleanor woke up with enthusiasm. crafting hearty breakfasts and soaking in the innocent chatter of her grandchildren as they shared their dreams. In the afternoons, she joined them at the dining table, guiding them through homework with patience and love. This is what life is about, she reassured herself. Being needed, being useful, and being close to the ones I adore. But life, like a relentless tide, kept moving. The joyful days soon blurred into an endless routine. From sunrise to sunset, Eleanor found herself trapped in a cycle of chores, preparing meals, tidying up, managing the children, and repeating it all over again. The spark that had lit her heart at the beginning started to dim as weeks melted into one another without even a sliver of time for herself. She began to yearn for her old apartment, a place where she once felt free to indulge in her small joys. Eleanor missed those quiet mornings with a cup of tea in hand, a good book in her lap, or simply gazing out the window as the sky transformed with the day. But whenever these thoughts crossed her mind, guilt rushed in like a tidal wave. How could I feel this way? She would scold herself. I'm living the life I dreamed of. A loving family, wonderful grandchildren, and a home filled with warmth. Yet deep within, Eleanor knew it wasn't love from her family that she was longing for. It was love for herself. The independence that once defined her, the moments of solitude that nourished her soul, seemed to be slipping further away. One evening, as the children lay fast asleep, she stepped out onto the balcony. Under the vast expanse of stars, Eleanor whispered softly to herself, "Have I given so much of myself that I've forgotten who I am? Am I still living, or merely existing for others?" That question lingered, not as a reproach, but as a quiet nudge from her heart. Eleanor began to understand that loving her family didn't have to mean surrendering every piece of herself. Perhaps, she thought, a life well lived is about finding the balance, giving to those we love while holding on to the parts of ourselves that make us whole. Eleanor was filled with hope as she moved in with her daughter's family. To her, this was not just an opportunity to be close to her grandchildren, but also a way to bring new meaning to her life. She envisioned her days filled with laughter, joy, and cherished memories that would last forever. At first, everything seemed perfect. The house brimmed with the sounds of children's laughter. The kitchen was filled with the comforting aroma of freshly baked muffins, and afternoons were spent joyfully guiding her grandchildren through their homework. Eleanor felt needed and valued, an essential thread in the fabric of the family. But as the weeks passed, she found herself asking, "Am I giving everything to my family and leaving nothing for myself?" The hidden weight of caregiving. Psychologists call this the grandmother-caregiver paradox, where grandparents become so enmeshed in caregiving roles that their own needs and identities fade into the background. Eleanor adored her grandchildren, but she couldn't ignore the creeping feeling that she was losing pieces of herself. Days blurred together in a repetitive cycle of chores, tidying up, cooking, supervising schoolwork, and keeping the household running smoothly. The quiet moments she once treasured, time to think, breathe, or simply be, had become a distant memory. Her fatigue wasn't just physical, it gnawed at her spirit. Though she often told herself her sacrifices were acts of love, a small voice inside whispered, "Is it wrong to want more? More time, more space, more room to remember who I am?" Longing for the freedom she once knew. Some afternoons, Eleanor would find herself gazing out of the window, her eyes tracing the clouds. Her mind drifted to the life she had before. Slow mornings, savoring her coffee, unhurried walks through the park, and conversations with old friends that felt like a warm embrace. Now, the home she once thought would bring closeness often left her feeling adrift. As writer C.S. Lewis once said, "Being lost doesn't always mean being alone. Sometimes it's losing sight of yourself among those you love." Rediscovering herself, striking a balance. Eleanor's story reminds us that true love doesn't require sacrificing yourself entirely. Older adults deserve the freedom to pursue their joys, chase dreams left on the shelf, and nurture their own sense of identity. The role of a grandparent or caregiver is vital, but it should never eclipse your worth as an individual. You are more than the tasks you complete for others. You are a person deserving of the same care and attention you give. Eventually, Eleanor realized that real love means sharing without losing. She began to reclaim her time, taking small but meaningful steps to find balance and joy. As philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote, "To be yourself in a world that demands everything from you is the greatest accomplishment." Eleanor embraced this truth, transforming her life one small step at a time. Eleanor believed moving in with her daughter Emily's family was the start of a meaningful new chapter. Filled with love, she saw this as a chance to be close to her grandchildren and support her family. To her, it felt like a way to bring value to her life and deepen the bonds she cherished. But what began as a dream of connection slowly turned into an unexpected reality. The once laughter-filled days gave way to tension, and the warmth of shared meals transformed into moments of criticism. One afternoon, as Eleanor carefully prepared lunch, Emily walked into the kitchen with a frustrated look. "Mom, how many times do I have to tell you? The kids don't like peas. Why do you keep putting them in?" The words hit Eleanor like cold water. Suggestions that once seemed harmless now felt like commands. The space that once felt like home began to close in, and Eleanor's voice felt increasingly silenced. "Am I truly appreciated, or am I just another responsibility?" she wondered. The invisible cage of caregiving. Many older adults face a struggle similar to Eleanor's. Psychologists refer to this as the caregiver's burden, a phenomenon where older individuals take on family responsibilities out of love but often go unrecognized or undervalued. Eleanor's life became a repetitive cycle: cooking, cleaning, babysitting, and helping with homework. Her dreams and desires seemed to fade into the background. Slowly, she felt like she was disappearing in her own home. The Eleanor who once dreamed of exploring new hobbies, traveling, or simply enjoying a quiet moment now found herself consumed by daily obligations dictated by others. The cost of losing independence. Psychologist Erik Erikson highlighted the importance of maintaining autonomy in later life. Losing independence, he argued, can lead to a crisis of identity and a deep sense of despair. Eleanor began to feel this firsthand. A study by the University of Michigan revealed that older adults who maintain their independence report higher levels of life satisfaction. It's easy to understand why. When someone else controls every decision, your sense of self-worth begins to erode. Every time Emily said, "Mom, you should do it this way," or "Why didn't you follow my instructions?" it chipped away at Eleanor's confidence. Resentment, a silent and unwelcome guest, began to settle into the home that once felt like a refuge. A night of reflection. One evening after an especially hard day, Eleanor sat alone in her room, tears quietly streaming down her face. The walls that once gave her comfort now seemed to close in, turning her safe space into a cage. She felt discarded, invisible, a relic from the past, tucked away but never truly valued. How many older adults silently endure this same tragedy? The cruel irony was clear. In seeking closeness with her family, Eleanor had lost herself. Finding light in the darkness. Philosopher Bertrand Russell once said, "The purpose of life is to grow, not only physically but emotionally and spiritually." But Eleanor wondered, how could she grow when each passing day made her feel smaller? A breakthrough came from an unexpected place. A lifelong friend who recognized Eleanor's struggle. With gentle honesty, her friend said, "You can love your family without losing yourself." That simple truth opened Eleanor's eyes. She realized that finding balance didn't mean abandoning her family. It meant setting boundaries and making space for her own needs. Slowly, Eleanor began to reclaim her joy. She joined a local art class, reconnected with old friends, and rediscovered the importance of self-care. A message for us all. Eleanor's story reminds us that love doesn't require complete self-sacrifice. Older adults deserve moments of freedom, personal joys, and the chance to live for themselves. If you see yourself in Eleanor's story, remember, you are more than just a caregiver. You are a person with dreams, value, and a life worth living to the fullest. Find your balance, because your life matters just as much as anyone else's. The day Eleanor found herself again. It was an ordinary day when Hazel, Eleanor's lifelong friend, stopped by unexpectedly. Standing at the door with her bright eyes and a warm bag of apple pies, Hazel's smile faded as she took in Eleanor's tired face. "Eleanor, is that you? You look exhausted," Hazel said, noting the dark circles under her friend's eyes and the faint smile she struggled to muster. "Oh, just a bit tired," Eleanor replied, brushing off the concern. But Hazel wasn't convinced. As the two sat in the kitchen, savoring warm apple pie and tea, Hazel couldn't help but notice the uncharacteristic mess in Eleanor's usually tidy home. "Are you sure you're okay?" Hazel asked gently, her eyes full of concern. At that moment, Eleanor couldn't hold it in any longer. Like a taut string suddenly snapping, her emotions poured out in a flood. "Hazel, sometimes I don't even recognize myself anymore," Eleanor said, tears streaming down her face. "I love my grandchildren, but it's like nothing belongs to me anymore. My days revolve around cooking, cleaning, and caregiving. Where's the woman who dreamed of traveling? The one who wanted to learn piano? She's gone." A friend who truly understood. Hazel listened quietly, her face filled with empathy. When Eleanor finally paused, Hazel reached across the table, placing a comforting hand on her friend's. "Eleanor," she said warmly, "what if I told you that I've been where you are, that I once felt exactly the same, and I found a way to change it?" Eleanor looked at Hazel in surprise, skepticism creeping into her voice. "You? But you've always seemed so happy, so free." Hazel smiled softly. "It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I felt like I was drowning too. But I realized something important. If I didn't take care of myself, no one else would." The journey back to herself. Hazel shared how she had started small. She learned to say no to unnecessary obligations, joined a book club she'd always wanted to try, and even took entire days for herself to do the things that brought her joy. "At first I felt guilty," Hazel admitted. "But then I realized a happier, more fulfilled me was the best gift I could give my family." Hazel's words lit a small spark of hope in Eleanor. For the first time, she didn't feel so alone in her struggles. That conversation marked a turning point for Eleanor. She began to see that love doesn't have to mean sacrificing yourself entirely. To truly care for others, she had to care for herself first. Eleanor decided to make changes, little by little. She signed up for a pottery class she'd always been curious about. She reconnected with old friends over lunch. Most importantly, she learned to say no when she felt overwhelmed. Eleanor's story is one that resonates with many older adults. It's easy to lose yourself in the roles you play for others. But as Hazel showed her, it's never too late to reclaim your joy and sense of self. Remember, taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's essential. By nurturing your own happiness, you can bring the best version of yourself to the people you love. Take the time to rediscover your passions, because you deserve a life that is full, meaningful, and truly yours. Page 6. Do you remember? Eleanor's story of rediscovery. Do you remember when my kids convinced me to move in with them? After 6 months, I realized it was the biggest mistake of my life, said Hazel, her voice laced with honesty. Eleanor sat quietly, her gaze fixed on her friend as Hazel recounted her story. Like Eleanor, Hazel had sacrificed her independence, passions, and even a sense of self. One day, Hazel continued, I remembered something Ralph Waldo Emerson once said. The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. And that's when I decided it was time to become myself again. Eleanor listened intently as Hazel described the brave decision she made to move out and live on her own again. It wasn't easy, Hazel admitted. At first, my kids didn't understand. But you know what? Over time, our relationship improved. They stopped seeing me as a burden or a constant babysitter and started seeing me as their mother again, an independent, happy woman. Eleanor hesitated before asking the question weighing heavily on her mind. But Hazel, didn't you feel lonely? Sometimes, yes, Hazel replied with a soft smile. But as Carl Jung once said, loneliness does not come from having no one around, but from being unable to share the things that matter to you. And let me tell you, Eleanor, since reclaiming my independence, my conversations with my kids and grandkids have become richer and more meaningful than ever. Finding a new path. Hazel's words resonated deeply with Eleanor, as if someone had just turned on a light in a dark room, revealing a path she hadn't known was there. True happiness, Hazel continued, comes from living a life that feels like your own. It's about finding a healthy balance between family responsibilities and taking care of yourself. Did you know that recent studies show older adults who maintain their independence often have better mental and physical health? Eleanor shook her head, surprised by the information. It's true, Hazel said firmly. A study published in the Journal of Geriatrics found that older adults who live independently report higher life satisfaction and lower rates of depression. They even have stronger immune systems. Eleanor sat in silence, processing everything Hazel had just shared. Her emotions were a mixture of fear and hope, like a delicate balance between hesitation and excitement. Finally, she broke the silence. But, Hazel, where do I start? I'm so afraid of hurting my daughter and my grandchildren, Eleanor confessed. Taking the first steps. Hazel leaned forward, her voice steady yet reassuring. Eleanor, start small. This isn't about making drastic changes overnight. It's about rediscovering yourself in ways that feel manageable. Take a few hours for yourself each week. Go to a local class, take a walk in the park, or just enjoy a quiet afternoon with a book you love. You'll be amazed how small steps can lead to big changes. Eleanor's expression softened as she considered Hazel's advice. And when you feel ready, Hazel added, you can have a conversation with your daughter. Share how much you love her and the family, but also express your need to regain a part of yourself. When they see you happier and more fulfilled, they'll understand. It may take time, but they will. You're a lesson in balance. Hazel looked Eleanor in the eye and smiled. Remember, Eleanor, taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's an act of love. Love for yourself and for your family. A happier you will only bring more joy to them. Eleanor nodded, her fears still present, but overshadowed by a growing sense of determination. I want that, she said softly. I want to feel like myself again. You can do it, Hazel encouraged. And remember, I'm here for you every step of the way. A reminder for all of us, Eleanor's story is one many older adults can relate to. It's easy to lose yourself in the roles you play for others, but reclaiming your independence doesn't mean abandoning your family. By rediscovering yourself and maintaining balance, you can deepen your connections with loved ones while living a life that feels truly fulfilling. If you're feeling like Eleanor, take a first step today. Your happiness matters, both for you and for the ones you love most. Eleanor's journey, rediscovering her spark. Eleanor, love isn't about sacrificing yourself. Your children will be happier when they see you living as your true self, Hazel said, gently squeezing her friend's hand. Start small. Take a morning walk in the park. Enroll in that class you've always dreamed of. Each little step will help you reclaim your space. Hazel's words were like a small flame lighting the way in Eleanor's heart. After years of living for others, she felt something new: hope. Hazel's unexpected visit didn't just bring the scent of freshly baked apple pies. It planted the seed of a new idea. Eleanor realized she was at a crossroads in her life. On one hand, she deeply loved her family. On the other, she couldn't deny the growing sense that she was fading away, like a candle burning out. She recalled a quote by the philosopher Seneca: "Life is long if you know how to use it." Eleanor asked herself, am I truly living or am I just existing? Small steps, big impact. The next morning, while preparing breakfast for her grandchildren, Eleanor looked out the window and realized just how much of herself she had left behind. When was the last time I did something just for me? She wondered. That same day, Eleanor decided to try something different. She took a walk alone at the park. At first, guilt tugged at her. She felt she should be at home helping out. But as the cool breeze brushed her face and her feet moved along the leaf-strewn path, she felt a peace she hadn't experienced in years. Those walks became her sanctuary. They gave her time to reflect on dreams she had once cherished and consider how she might rediscover them. A bold decision. A few weeks later, Eleanor made a bolder move. She signed up for a creative writing class at the local community center. What if I can't write anymore, she worried. But then she remembered Maya Angelou's words. You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. In the class, Eleanor rediscovered her joy in storytelling. She wrote about her childhood memories, her hidden fears, and even her journey to find herself again. But she also found something else, a group of new friends who inspired her and reminded her that it's never too late to start over. The power of independence. Eleanor's journey wasn't just emotional, it had physical benefits too. She felt more energized, less stressed, and even started sleeping better. Research from Stanford University shows that older adults who maintain their independence often enjoy better mental and physical health. Eleanor was living proof of this. Each small step she took for herself felt like reclaiming a piece of her youth. Renewed family connections. Instead of spending every moment taking care of her family, Eleanor set boundaries. To her surprise, this made her relationship stronger. Her grandchildren asked her excitedly about her writing class, and Eleanor felt a renewed sense of pride as she shared her stories. The conversations were no longer about exhaustion or frustrations, but about the joy she was rediscovering. Her relationship with her daughter Emily also shifted. Eleanor sensed a growing respect and understanding between them. They talked not just as mother and daughter, but as equals, each with their own dreams and challenges. A life reclaimed Eleanor came to understand that independence didn't mean distancing herself from her family. It meant finding a way to thrive alongside them. Living for herself didn't diminish her love for them. It made it deeper. The message for us all. If you see yourself in Eleanor's story, remember this: it's never too late to start anew. Each small step, a walk in the park, a class you've always wanted to take, can lead to something extraordinary. Don't just exist. Live fully, joyfully, and purposefully. A vibrant, fulfilled you is the greatest gift you can give to your family and to yourself. Eleanor's turning point. A story of rediscovery. Eleanor had spent weeks gathering the courage to have an important conversation with her daughter, Emily. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she also knew it was necessary. As author Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "There are things which must be spoken, for silence can hurt more than bitter words." Today, Eleanor was ready to tell her story. Taking a deep breath, Eleanor sat down across from Emily in the living room. "Emily, sweetheart, I need to talk to you," she began, her voice steady but soft. Emily looked up from her book, curiosity etched across her face. "What is it, Mom?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately," Eleanor started, carefully choosing her words. "And I think it's time for me to move out and live on my own." Moment of silence. The room fell quiet. Emily blinked, her brow furrowing as she tried to process what her mother had just said. "You mean you're not happy here? Did we do something wrong?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry and guilt. Eleanor gave her a gentle smile, her eyes warm and reassuring. "No, my dear. You and the kids have been wonderful. But I've realized that I need some space to reconnect with myself, to rediscover the things that bring me joy." She thought of philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson's words, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." Emily hesitated, the concern on her face deepening. "But Mom, are you sure? What if something happens to you while you're on your own? What if you get sick or need help?" Eleanor reached out, taking Emily's hand in hers. "Emily, I'm not going far. I'll be close enough for us to see each other whenever we want. But I need to take this step for myself, to create a space where I can thrive and enjoy this stage of my life." She shared a study from Yale University, which found that older adults who maintain their independence report higher levels of happiness and better overall health. Emily still seemed hesitant. "But the kids love having you here. They'll miss you so much," she said, offering her final argument. Eleanor chuckled softly, her love for her grandchildren shining through. "I'll miss them too, more than they know. But do you know what? I think I'll be a better grandmother if I have time to take care of myself. A happier me will bring more joy to all of us." She remembered a quote by Virginia Woolf, "A room of one's own is where every soul finds its freedom and creativity." Acceptance. Emily sat quietly, her mind turning over everything her mother had said. She looked into Eleanor's steady, determined eyes and realized that this wasn't about selfishness. It was about her mother finding herself again. Finally, with tears streaming down her cheeks, Emily nodded. "You're right, Mom. You deserve to live the life you want." They embraced tightly, and Eleanor felt a weight lift from her shoulders. This wasn't the end of their closeness, but the beginning of a new kind of relationship, one built on mutual respect and understanding. The lesson for all of us. Eleanor's story reminds us that love sometimes means giving each other the freedom to grow. As Khalil Gibran wisely said, "Love does not claim possession, but gives freedom." If you feel weighed down by expectations or roles, remember that caring for yourself isn't selfish. It's essential to show up fully for those you love. Be brave, have those heartfelt conversations, and take the steps to live the life you deserve, because it's never too late to rediscover yourself. A new chapter for Eleanor. "We'll just feel so lost without you here," Clara said, her voice quivering. "And I'll miss you all so much too," Eleanor replied gently, pulling her daughter into a warm embrace. "But think about all the times you'll visit me. This time no one will be around to tell me I use too much butter in my baking." They both laughed, a shared moment that eased the tension in the room. According to Dr. Laura Whitfield, a family psychologist, difficult conversations like this are vital to maintaining strong bonds between parents and their adult children. Honest and heartfelt communication helps families navigate major life transitions while preserving close relationships. As their conversation continued, Clara began to see things from her mother's perspective. "Maybe we all need a little space to live our own lives," she admitted thoughtfully. "You've spent so many years putting us first." Eleanor nodded, a sense of relief washing over her as her daughter began to understand. "Exactly, my love. Now it's time for me to take care of myself," she said with a gentle smile. As Virginia Woolf once wrote, "It is only in your own space that you can truly understand who you are." Clara grinned, her tone lightening to soften the moment. "Then we'll need to find you a place with a big enough kitchen for all your famous recipes. And don't forget a balcony for my tulip garden," Eleanor added, her eyes lighting up with excitement. The new home, a new journey. The day Eleanor walked into her new apartment, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Am I truly ready for this?" she wondered, her gaze sweeping over the empty, unadorned space. But then she recalled the words of Carl Jung. "Life is not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it." Eleanor knew this wasn't just a small change. It was a bold step toward living the life she had always dreamed of. Creating her own space, decorating her new apartment became an unexpected form of therapy. Every item Eleanor placed was more than just a piece of furniture. It was a declaration of her rediscovered identity. The vibrant patterned rug her family had once deemed too loud now sat proudly in the center of her living room, a burst of color symbolizing her newfound joy. The paintings of serene forests she had always loved now adorned the walls, transforming the apartment into a space that truly felt like home. A new confidence in life. With each passing day, Eleanor realized her new apartment was more than just a place to live. It was a reminder that she was finally living for herself. As Mary Oliver once wrote, "Life is a gift, and your one task is to make your heart sing with it." One morning, as sunlight streamed onto her balcony, Eleanor admired the tulips she had just planted. A smile spread across her face as she realized this journey wasn't just about creating a new space. It was about rediscovering herself. Eleanor wasn't just decorating a home. She was rebuilding her life. Eleanor did something she had never dared to before. She painted one of her living room walls a bold shade of terracotta red. If William could see this, he'd laugh and say, "Well, you've certainly made a statement." Eleanor chuckled, fondly recalling her late husband. But her transformation didn't begin with the paint. It started when she decided to step out of her comfort zone. Class and a new friend. Eleanor signed up for a painting class at the local community center. At first she thought, a paintbrush and an old woman, how cliché. But on her very first day, she met Linda, a widow with a razor-sharp wit and infectious laughter. Linda quickly became Eleanor's partner in discovering life's new adventures. Linda's zest for life inspired Eleanor to try something new, a dance class for seniors. "We don't need to dance beautifully, just don't trip over your own feet," Linda quipped, earning a hearty laugh from Eleanor. Learning to live fully. Together, Eleanor and Linda explored the concept of active aging, a way of living not just to keep busy, but to live with purpose. As the World Health Organization puts it, active aging allows people to realize their potential for physical, social, and mental well-being throughout life. Their first dance class was a hilarious disaster. "I feel like a tangled-up garden hose," Eleanor groaned, her face red with exertion. But they persisted. Over time, Eleanor noticed she was growing stronger, her balance improving, and most importantly, she was laughing more than she had in years. One afternoon, over tea after class, Linda said, "Have you noticed that we've stopped complaining about aches and pains?" Eleanor smiled. "Maybe we're too busy living to remember we're getting older." Rediscovering old passions. Inspired by Linda's boldness, Eleanor decided to do more. She joined a book club and rekindled her love for poetry, a passion she hadn't indulged in since her youth. For the first time in decades, she began writing her own poems. "My wrinkles may show on my face, but at least my verses stay smooth," she joked with her book club friends, earning a round of laughter. Renewed family connections. The biggest change in Eleanor's life, however, came in her relationship with her family. By choosing to live independently, she created space for her children and grandchildren to visit her not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. One Sunday, as her eldest granddaughter helped water the plants on Eleanor's balcony, the girl asked, "Grandma, how do you stay so happy?" Eleanor paused for a moment before answering, "I've learned that love doesn't mean being together every moment. Real love gives us the freedom to grow as individuals." Her words echoed the wisdom of Khalil Gibran, who wrote, "Let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you." The lesson of mature love. Eleanor discovered the paradox of love. Sometimes creating distance brings people closer. As the philosopher Erich Fromm explained, mature love says, "I need you because I love you." Immature love says, "I love you because I need you." Her newfound independence didn't mean detachment. It meant a healthier way of loving and connecting with her family. A life well lived. Eleanor was determined to make the second act of her life her best yet. She embraced freedom, rediscovered herself, and became a living example of how aging could be filled with joy and dignity. As the Roman philosopher Seneca once said, "Life is like a play. It's not the length, but the excellence of the performance that matters." Eleanor knew that when her final curtain fell, she would stand proud under life's spotlight, knowing she had lived fully and without regret. The changes Eleanor made didn't just benefit her, they transformed her entire family. Her grandchildren now had the joy of visiting two loving homes. Her daughter Clara felt less pressure and more gratitude. As for Eleanor, she thrived in her newfound independence, living with a vibrant energy she hadn't felt in years. It turned out that they had discovered the golden formula for a happy family. Surprisingly, the secret ingredient was a little space. Eleanor realized that happiness didn't come from living under the same roof or being entirely apart. It came from finding the perfect balance between the two. As the Greek philosopher Aristotle once said, "True happiness lies in balance." Learning to balance. After reclaiming her independence, Eleanor faced a new challenge: how to maintain close relationships with her family without giving up her newfound freedom. She realized that the key was flexibility and balance, not absolutes. Eleanor set clear but gentle boundaries. She agreed to watch her grandchildren 2 afternoons a week, but reserved the rest of her time for personal pursuits like book clubs, art classes, and meditation. "It's like juggling," Eleanor often joked. "But instead of balls, I'm balancing love, freedom, and responsibility." Quality over quantity. Surprisingly, Eleanor's approach didn't just grant her more freedom, it also made her time with her family more meaningful. The long, uneventful afternoons of the past transformed into moments filled with laughter and deep conversations. As writer Emily Dickinson once wrote, "It is the small moments, rich with meaning, where the heart truly feels at home." Eleanor discovered that quality mattered far more than quantity when it came to time with her loved ones. Facing the challenges. Of course, the journey wasn't always smooth. There were moments when Eleanor felt waves of guilt, especially when her youngest grandchild asked, "Grandma, can't you stay and play with me more often?" Instead of avoiding these feelings, Eleanor chose to confront them. She remembered the words of psychologist Carl Rogers. "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." Eleanor learned to talk to her guilt, reminding herself that taking care of her own well-being allowed her to love her family more fully. The power of science. A study by the University of Michigan found that older adults who balanced independence with family support were 30% less likely to experience depression. Eleanor was living proof of this statistic. With her newfound confidence, she became a beacon of inspiration in her senior support group. Growing older is like making a perfect cup of tea, Eleanor shared. You need to know how to add sweetness, spice, and patience to let it cool before you can enjoy its full flavor. Eleanor's wisdom. Eleanor's experiences inspired many around her. She often said, "Happiness doesn't come from living next to someone. It comes from cherishing every moment when you're together." As anthropologist Margaret Mead once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." In her own small world, Eleanor changed not only her life but the lives of her family. One step, one heart, and one moment at a time. Eleanor's bold journey, a life fully lived. But perhaps the greatest transformation didn't happen around Eleanor. It happened within her. She no longer saw herself as a burden or a shadow in her family's life. Instead, she became a woman with purpose, dreams, and the energy to pursue them. As the philosopher Seneca once said, "It's not that we have too little time, but that we waste so much of it." Eleanor was determined not to waste another moment. Her story shows us that loving oneself isn't just a gift to ourselves. It's a ripple effect that touches everyone around us. When Eleanor chose to reclaim her independence, she planted seeds of wisdom and inspiration in her family. As psychologist Carl Jung famously said, "The greatest impact we can have on our children is not by teaching them, but by living our own lives fully." Eleanor did exactly that, and she did it brilliantly. The ripple effect. Eleanor's transformation didn't stop with her. It rippled through her family. Her daughter Clara, who had been hesitant at first, began to see her mother in a new light. Eleanor was no longer just grandma, but a woman with passions, dreams, and a life of her own. This realization inspired Clara to reflect on her own life. Am I living the life I want, or just the life others expect of me? Clara asked herself, sparking her own journey of self-discovery. As for her grandchildren, they now saw Eleanor as more than a doting grandmother. She became a source of inspiration, sharing captivating stories about her art classes and proudly displaying her latest paintings. Unknowingly, Eleanor was teaching them an invaluable lesson. Independence isn't selfish. It's an essential part of living authentically. A legacy beyond family. Eleanor's story didn't just transform her family, it posed a question to all of us. Are we truly respecting the personal space of our loved ones, or are we unintentionally suffocating them with our expectations? As the poet Khalil Gibran once wrote, "Your children are not your property. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself." Eleanor realized that this truth extended to parents as well. We are not possessions of our children. We are individuals with the right to live our own lives. A bold invitation. Dear friend, let me ask you this. Are you living your life or the life others expect of you? Remember, it's never too late to start anew. If you've ever dreamed of learning to dance, joining a cooking class, or traveling to a place you've always wanted to see, do it now. As poet Mary Oliver beautifully asked, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" Step out of your comfort zone. Embrace what excites and terrifies you. That's where true growth happens. The greatest gift. Remember, the greatest gift you can give your family is your happiness. As Goethe once wrote, "Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it." Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. So be bold, be yourself, and live the life you've always dreamed of. If you've made it this far, comment below with, "I am my own light," to let me know you've reached the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that inspire and empower. Together, we can create a community where everyone is encouraged to live with joy, purpose, and authenticity.